I think I met myself. I live in a relatively small city and know most of the area pretty well. I work from home, so I don't get out much during the weekdays, but on weekends, I like to take long walks to clear my head. Last Saturday afternoon, I decided to explore a part of town I don't normally visit. It's not far from where I live, but it's mostly industrial. Lots of warehouses, not much foot traffic, and not really a place with much to see. I was walking down this long, straight road when I noticed someone coming toward me from the opposite direction. It was a guy about my height, wearing a hoodie, jeans, and a backpack. As he got closer, maybe 15 or 20 feet away, I started feeling a wave of anxiety. Not just any anxiety, though. It was full-on panic. My heart was racing, and I felt like I couldn't breathe. It was the strangest, most unsettling feeling I've ever experienced. Because I knew this person. I had seen him before. It wasn't just that we looked alike. It was everything about him. The way he walked, his posture, the way he held his hand in his pocket. It was me. We locked eyes as we passed, and neither of us said a word. We just stared at each other, sizing each other up. His expression mirrored exactly how I was feeling. Confused and scared, wide-eyed, like he couldn't believe what he was seeing. It wasn't just the resemblance, it was the feeling. It was like we were two versions of the same person. When we finally passed, I kept walking, but I felt like I had to turn around and look again. I stood there for what felt like 10 or 20 seconds before glancing back. But by the time I did, he was gone. Completely. There was nowhere he could have gone. No alleys, no doors, no places to duck into. The road was long and straight, and he should have still been visible. I even walked back to the spot where we passed each other, just to make sure, but there was nothing. It was like he had vanished into thin air. At first, I tried to brush it off. Maybe I was imagining things. Maybe I was just tired or stressed, but the more I think about it, the less sense it makes. I've tried Googling it, but all I've found are urban legends and vague warnings about doppelgangers being bad omens. Nothing useful. I brought it up to some friends, and they told me I'm probably just stressed or overthinking it, but I can't shake the feeling that something real happened. It's like I slipped into a parallel universe for a moment or experienced some kind of glitch in the Matrix. What's even weirder is that since this happened, I've been getting intense deja vu about random everyday things. Like, I'll be talking to someone or walking down a street, and I'll have this overwhelming sense that I've done it all before. I swear I didn't hallucinate this. It was real. Has anyone ever experienced anything like this, or am I losing it? Everything went dark, but only two of us noticed. About a year and a half ago, I was at work, sitting at my PC. My colleague was across from me, also working at her desk. It's an open-plan office, with around 25 people working that day. All the lights and computers were on, just the usual busy workday atmosphere. Out of nowhere, the entire office went pitch black. For a split second. It was like someone turned off every light and screen in the building, and then instantly turned them all back on. But here's the weird part. When the lights came back, everything was still on. The PCs, the overhead lights, everything was exactly as it had been before. It wasn't a power outage, and nothing seemed to have physically changed. I was stunned for a second, and immediately turned to my colleague, asking, "Did you see that?" She replied, "Yeah, I did." We both looked around, expecting to see other people reacting, but no one else seemed to notice anything. Everyone just kept working like nothing had happened. Confused, we asked another coworker nearby if she had noticed the blackout. She stared at us like we were nuts and said she hadn't seen anything. At the time, we didn't think too much about it. It was one of those, that was weird. Anyway, back to work moments. Fast forward to mid-2024, and it happened again. Same situation. We're both at our desks, working away. Everything in the office suddenly goes pitch black for a split second, then comes right back. And once again, no one else noticed it. We both looked at each other immediately, and I asked, "Did you see it again?" She said yes, and we both knew we weren't imagining it. We asked our boss this time, but she hadn't noticed anything either. But we were absolutely sure of what we experienced. It wasn't just a flicker of the lights. It was like the entire world turned off and back on in an instant. But only the two of us seemed to perceive it, while everything in the office, computers, lights, people, kept going like nothing had happened. It still baffles us. We've gone over it so many times, trying to come up with some logical explanation, but nothing makes sense. It wasn't a power outage, and there's no way two separate instances of the exact same thing could happen without anyone else noticing. Maybe it wasn't a glitch in the Matrix, but it's definitely weird. If anyone has theories or explanations, I'd love to hear them, because it still freaks me out to this day. The surgery. My mother's surgical incision site completely changed years later, and I still can't wrap my head around it. I'm going to try to keep this short, but honestly, it's difficult because the whole thing's so bizarre. Years ago, my mother was diagnosed with thyroid cancer. She was hesitant to go through with the surgery because she didn't want a visible neck scar. After her surgical consultation, though, she came home ecstatic. The surgeon had told her about a type of scarless surgery, where they cut along the inside of the lower lip, across the gum line, and pull the thyroid gland out through the mouth. No neck incision, no scar. She was thrilled. After the surgery, when I visited her, she was still over the moon about it. She peeled down her bottom lip, shoved her face in mine, and showed me the incision. I saw it, with my own eyes. It was unmistakable, and honestly kind of gross. I remember telling her, "Okay, very nice, Mom. Please get your mouth out of my face." I also know I would have absolutely noticed if there had been a fresh incision across her throat. That's not something you miss. My father was talking about how happy she was with the surgery, and I have siblings who witnessed the entire thing. There's no way this is something I dreamed up or misremembered. I saw the incision inside her mouth. I know what I saw. Fast forward several years, and I'm diagnosed with the same thyroid cancer. It's genetic. Naturally, I asked my surgeon about the mouth surgery to avoid a neck scar. His response? A flat-out no. He said they don't do that type of surgery for most cancer cases because you have to cut the thyroid into pieces to remove it through the mouth. If there's a tumor in a part of the thyroid that hasn't been detected yet, cutting it risks spreading cancer cells into surrounding tissue. So, he explained, it's generally not a safe option. After the appointment, I was furious. I texted my mom, essentially saying, "Your surgeon screwed up. They shouldn't have done that kind of surgery for you." She had no idea what I was talking about. Confused, she told me she never had any surgery like that. I doubled down, trying to explain what I meant. She responded by sending me a picture of her neck. And there it was, a faint silvery scar running across the front of her throat. I couldn't believe it. My dad backed her up, saying I was nuts. He claimed he'd never even heard of the mouth surgery, and that it sounded ridiculous. He told me to drop it. Meanwhile, my siblings also denied everything. They insisted she'd always had the neck incision, and even claimed I made a joke about it at the time, saying she should tell people she was mugged at an ATM when asked about the scar. That never happened. I'm absolutely sure of it. Why would I make a joke like that about a scar she didn't even have? I can't stop thinking about this. I remember everything so clearly. My mother being thrilled about avoiding a neck scar. Her showing me the incision inside her mouth. The conversations we had about it. It wasn't a dream or some passing thought. I lived through it. And now, it's as though none of it ever happened. How is this even possible? Is my mother really my mother? Is my family really my family? Did I somehow change into a different version of me that they've never told me about? Or did the universe rewrite history to correct the surgeon's decision, and I'm the only one left who remembers how it used to be? It breaks my brain every time I think about it. Did a dead classmate come to our reunion? I graduated from university in 2020, and I distinctly remember that one of our classmates passed away from COVID around that time. I didn't know him very well. Our conversations never went beyond simple greetings, but I remember the news of his death clearly. People were posting tributes on Instagram stories, saying things like, "You'll be missed," and "RIP." It was sad, but it didn't hit me personally because we weren't close. Fast forward to last week, and we had a reunion. Everything was normal until I spotted someone who looked exactly like him. At first, I thought it might be his brother, but later I found out it wasn't. It was him. I was too afraid to say anything. In my culture, joking about someone's death is considered extremely insulting and a terrible omen, so I didn't want to bring it up and risk being that guy. Instead, I just spent the evening acting casual and chatting with people like normal. At one point, someone pulled out our graduation photo, and we started talking about it. As we all looked at the picture, I realized that he wasn't in it. I casually asked him why he didn't attend graduation, in a lighthearted way, like, "Oh, you missed out. It was such a great day." His response floored me. He just shrugged and said, "I don't remember. Must have been busy." That confused me even more. Who misses their own graduation unless it's for something really important? And how could he not even remember why he wasn't there? Later, I talked to a friend who I'm still in touch with and meet up with regularly. I brought it up to him, half expecting him to think I was crazy, but instead, he said, "Thank you, so I'm not the only one." That made everything feel even stranger, because now it wasn't just me who remembered him being gone. At first, I thought maybe there had been a mistake. Maybe he got COVID, but didn't actually pass away, and it was just a rumor. But in our culture, rumors about someone's death are taken very seriously, and people don't spread them lightly. Besides, I specifically remember people posting RIP messages about him on social media. I tried to brush it off as a false memory, but my wife, who was my girlfriend back during graduation, remembers me mentioning a classmate's death from COVID at the time. That means it wasn't just in my head. I talked about it when it happened. Yet now, there's no trace of those old posts anywhere. I checked my friend's timeline, and there's nothing about it. His own Facebook has been inactive since 2018, so that didn't help. But I'm absolutely certain it's him. It's not a case of mistaken identity. No one else from our class passed away during or shortly after university, except him. I can't explain it. I'm not saying it's a glitch in the Matrix, but it's incredibly weird. How could someone we all thought was dead suddenly be at our reunion, acting like everything was normal? What could this be? I'm at a total loss. A decade later. This story has baffled me for years, and when my son and I told it to his wife over Christmas, she got just as creeped out as we always have. It's been on my mind again ever since, so I decided to share it here. Back in 2008, I was working in the front yard of my house when I noticed something strange. The screen from my son's bedroom window was missing. I was immediately pissed. My son was a rebellious teenager at the time. His mom had passed away, and he was going through a rough phase. So I assumed he had removed it while sneaking out of the house and either broken it or hidden it somewhere. When I confronted him about it, he denied everything. Point blank, he said, "When I sneak out, I use one of the doors, not the window." I didn't believe him. I was convinced he had damaged the screen and was trying to cover it up. Another thought crossed my mind. Maybe it was the result of a failed break-in attempt. Either way, I searched all over for the missing screen, or any broken pieces of it, but couldn't find anything. I figured I'd get around to replacing it eventually, but I procrastinated. The bottom part of the window was partially blocked by a row of hedges, so it wasn't something that stared me in the face every day. I didn't forget about it, but it became one of those out of sight, out of mind things. In 2015, I had a salesman come out to give me an estimate on replacing all the windows in the house. While we were walking around, he even commented on the missing screen. I didn't end up replacing the windows because the cost was outrageous, but the missing screen was still very much on my radar. Fast forward to 2022, we had a severe hailstorm that chewed up my roof, damaged my gutters, and even broke a couple of my windows. My insurance company sent out an adjuster to assess the damage. We walked around the house together, inspecting everything, the roof, the gutters, and all the windows and screens. That's when I saw it. The missing window screen was no longer missing. It was firmly attached to my son's bedroom window, just like it had never been gone. I was completely floored. The screen wasn't brand new, but it also had no damage from the hailstorm. Not a single dent or tear. In fact, it was one of only a few screens that were completely unharmed. Some windows even had broken glass from the storm. I still get goosebumps just thinking about it. Where had that screen been for 14 years? How did it suddenly reappear? My son, who's now a responsible adult, is just as creeped out as I am. He swears he has no idea what happened. And honestly, neither do I. We've gone over the possibilities 100 times. Did someone take the screen and secretly return it years later? Why would anyone even do that? Or did we just miss it for over a decade somehow? That seems impossible. It was gone. And even the salesman and the adjuster noticed. To this day, we have no explanation. The forest returned. My Juul? Not looking for judgment on nicotine use, please. This past summer, my friend and I took an incredible mountain biking road trip to Northern California. Outside Eureka, there's a trail system called Lax Creek, where we spent a few days riding. On one of those rides, I lost my Juul, a laser engraved one with my initials and a unique design. I was bummed, but I figured it was gone for good. A few days later, we ended up visiting a grove in the Redwoods, probably the Grove of the Titans, or another well-known grove more than 100 miles away. While walking along the path, I noticed a hollowed-out tree stump with a small entrance, just big enough to crouch into. Curious, I went inside. And there it was, perched perfectly on a small ledge inside the tree at about eye level was my Juul, the same one I had lost days earlier, no less than 100 miles away. The engraving and the pod matched exactly. It was unmistakably mine. This absolutely blew my mind. Lax Creek, where I lost it, is an isolated, lonely place. We saw one person during the 3 days we were there, and the trails are fast downhill biking routes. Unlikely for anyone to find a small vape, let alone pick it up and take it miles away to a crowded grove in the Redwoods. For context, no other substances were involved, and my friend couldn't possibly have pulled a prank. He was riding ahead of me when I lost it, and didn't have any opportunity to take or relocate it. In the grove, I was the first one to enter the tree, and had clear sight of him the entire time. I still can't figure out how this happened. Did the forest borrow my Juul and give it back? Did some stranger find it and coincidentally leave it in that exact tree? It feels like the kind of mystery I'll never solve. Weirdly enough, this experience made me quit vaping. But to this day, I'm haunted and fascinated by the bizarre mechanism that returned my Juul. The mysterious potato incident. So, something super weird happened this morning while I was making breakfast. I grabbed a handful of small potatoes from the fridge, washed them, and set them on the counter to cut in half for hash browns. For context, I was wearing a loosely fitting long-sleeve shirt. Nothing tight, just kind of baggy and comfy. Anyway, I was in the middle of chopping the potatoes when I suddenly felt something cold on my lower back, near the right side. It was like someone had pressed an ice cube against my skin, out of nowhere. Naturally, I freaked out a bit and reached back to grab at my shirt, trying to figure out what it was. To my shock, I felt something solid and round under my shirt. I quickly pulled my shirt away from my skin and caught whatever it was in my hand. It was a small potato. Yes, a potato. I have no idea how it got there. 1 second, I'm chopping potatoes on the counter, and the next, one somehow teleports onto my back under my shirt. I genuinely can't figure it out. Did it bounce off the counter? Did I somehow fling it into my shirt without noticing? Physics feels like it just gave up for a moment. I couldn't help but laugh because it was so ridiculous. But seriously, how did that happen? The popcorn girl. This happened last summer and my wife and I are still baffled by it. It was mid-afternoon, and the two of us were out walking around the downtown area of our town. The street we were on was straight and quiet, with only a few shops to one side, the road on the other, and a large field across the way where some people were wandering about. As we strolled along, a girl carrying a tray of popcorn samples approached us. She wore a teal shirt with the logo of the local snack shop, black pants, and an apron. She offered us a sample of popcorn, and I took it, thanking her as she walked past us. My wife tried a piece and, within seconds, turned around to compliment the girl on how good it was. But she was gone. And I mean gone. In the 10-20 seconds it took for my wife to turn around, there was no sign of her. She wasn't further down the road in either direction. She wasn't crossing the street, nor was she in the field across the way. The two shops near us were closed, so she couldn't have gone inside. I even thought maybe she ran off, but that didn't make sense. Her tray was full of sample cups, and if she'd bolted, the tray would have tipped, spilling popcorn everywhere. But there was nothing on the ground. No spilled popcorn, no sign of movement. It was as if she had simply glitched out of reality. My wife and I still talk about it because we can't make sense of what happened. Where could she have possibly gone in a matter of seconds? To this day, it remains one of the strangest experiences of our lives.
Reality's unclear. Truth is slowly fading.